all so much for joining us. My name is Caitlin Handler. I serve as the Deputy Administrator of the Roslyn Landmark Society. We're standing here this morning at the intersection of Roslyn Road and Harbor Hill Road in East Hills at the entrance to what was once the Grand Harbor Hill Estate. This structure, the Mackay Estate Gate Lodge, was designed by Stanford White in 1899 of the renowned architectural firm McKim, Mead & White. It was constructed between 1900 and 1902. These entry gates opened into an expansive 648-acre estate atop the second highest point on the island's north shore. It overlooked Hempstead Harbor and was one of the most ambitious private achievements of the Gilded Age. What made Harbor Hill remarkable was not just its scale, but the creative partnership between Catherine Dewar Mackay and Stanford White, who worked closely together on every detail of the design. The 9 boxes of correspondence between them that sits in the New York Historical Society tells the story that more vividly than anything else could of a woman of a remarkable vision and agency who shaped the defining achievement of the American Gilded Age alongside one of the most influential architects of the era. The main house was demolished in 1947, and most of what Stanford White built here is gone. What survives is what you're standing in front of today, an extraordinary example of Gilded Age architecture. It survives because of people in this community that came together and decided that it was worth saving. Along with our partner, the Village of East Hills, the Roslyn Landmark Society has been proudly leading the restoration of this building since 2022. And the work of that restoration is what brings us here today. None of this happens without the people who believed in it before the scaffolding even goes up. We're grateful to the Village of East Hills for their steadfast dedication and support of this project, to the Robert David Lyon Gardner Foundation, whose generous grant made the restoration of the doors and windows possible, and to the more than 60 members of the community who donated to the Mackay Estate Founders Club and put their names permanently on the building's history, including but not limited to Joanne and Rick Shaper, Pearl and Nathan Huluga, and Roz and Howard Kroplik. We would also like to thank the town of North Hempstead, Nassau County, and New York State, whose New York State Council of the Arts awarded us $427,000 for the restoration of the Gate Lodge's historic slate roof. I also want to acknowledge someone else who's joining us today, Daniel W. White, Stanford White's great-grandson, who's here standing in front of the building that his great-grandfather designed as we begin this next chapter. During phase 1, the site was cleaned and years of graffiti were removed from the facade of the building. The windows and doors were faithfully replicated to the original historic specifications. The standards were upheld by Northwood Sash and Joinery, utilizing the same wavy glass, contemporaneous construction techniques, and the installation of this important element was donated by Roslyn Landmark Society co-president John Santos and his business Island Contracting. It was supported again by the grant from the Robert David Lyon Gardner Foundation. Phase 2 will begin the restoration of the original slate roof, which has defined the building for more than a century. Original building materials will be restored and reused as much as possible, and the copper elements will be recreated to a detail specific to the ridge and original roofline. The clock, which once stood above the gates, will be faithfully reproduced to the original specifications with a repoussé copper casing and restored to its original prominent placement, centrally located above the gates. At the completion of phase 2, the landscape design will be finalized, and the building will once again be poised to welcome visitors to the Village of East Hills. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Collins to give a few words. John Collins is the preeminent architect who has been working with us on the restoration and is responsible for these beautiful architectural renderings of what the building will look like. So I'm going to hand it over to him. Thank you so much, John.
Caitlin, you said it all. But,
no.
but what's so much fun about, and I'm not an architect, I'm a designer and preservationist.
Pardon me.
I work with an architect when we have to file the plans. But what's so fun about a building like this on the National Register and the incredible quality of design and integrity is to put it back as it was. the three bigger panels here are the original McKim, Mead, and White drawings that were in the library of the New York Historical Society. But what we found also is not only did McKim, Mead, and White design the building, they were the general contractors. And there were about 38 boxes in the Historical Society of all of that minutia and detail of construction. They were under renovation of the library, and they were stored in a warehouse in New Jersey, and it took months for me to get access to it. But I found that all of this slate was quarried in north central Maine. And in examining the slating, sending it to slate quarries, they concurred that this slate, even though it's 125 years old or so, it's still got a life to it. So we're going to be taking it off and repairing all the woodwork underneath, the dormer for the clock, and then putting it all back together. And only a small percentage in the back will have new slate quarried in Canada. But it's probably the same vein. The North Central quarry, of course, closed decades ago. But it's been so much fun to do that, and you find the craftsmen that'll do the hand-hammered copper repoussé facing to the clock, and the finials that'll match the one up here. So it's a labor of love and attention to detail, and the Landmark Society couldn't be better to work with, and you're amazing to find the money to do this, but we're making really great progress, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. John's been a pleasure to work with. I'm Howard Kroplik. I was the former town historian in Northampton and the former president of the Rosslyn Landmark Society as of last month, but I love history, and we're at a historic site right here. This was the grand entrance to the wonderful Harbor Hill estate, which you can see over here, and we're putting together a historic marker. We made an application. So recently, the Landmark Society and myself, we've been researching this estate and this building here. And there's a couple of interesting facts about where we're standing now and what happened here. In 1924, September 6, 1924, the social party of the 20s was held right here. It was Prince of Wales had a party, and all of Long Island, all of New York City came to this spot, went through these gates to greet the Prince of Wales, who later became King Edward the Eighth, later the Duke of Windsor. So he became the king. But then another very interesting party happened here, and you can see I'm wearing the Knicks championship hat. We're having a ticker tape parade on Thursday. Well, in 1927, there was a ticker tape parade for Charles Lindbergh. And Charles Lindbergh, where did he go after the ticker tape parade? Right here on this spot to get to the top of the hill, to see a Harbor Hill mansion. And on page 1 of the New York Times the next day, there was an article that said thousands of people who stood outside the gate waiting to see Charles Lindbergh. And so right where we are, can you imagine, there were thousands of people on the site to see a ticker tape parade. So it's a pleasure. This has been a labor of love for myself and the mayor, who's been held up, but I'm sure he's going to enjoy seeing the restoration of this building. This was taken over by the village in 2016, and they saved this building because it was going to be knocked down, but as part of the development, they made it sure that the land developer, the real estate developer, would save this property. So we were talking about McKim, Mead, and White, and Stanford White, and it's a real honor to have Dan White with us. Dan and I go back a couple of years. He was the president of SPLEA when I joined as a trustee, and one of the things he gave me was really said, we need to do something about our branding. So he made me the head of the branding committee, and the first thing I said is that we're going to change the name. And that was a real challenge because SPLEA had been the name for about 40 years or so, and nobody wanted to change the name, but we did. We successfully changed the name to Preservation Long Island. And so I'm pleased to introduce Dan White, who is a longtime colleague of mine, and it's a great honor to have you here, Dan. Say a few words.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for being here, and thank you and all of the people and organizations that worked to make this possible and actually make it happen. The only way architecture can speak is if it is experienced in sight, in a place where it is respected and accessible and visible. And I'd like to thank all of the people who collaborated. A difficult art. Talked to Eisenhower about Montgomery for years to make this building something that will be a shining example of the best that 1899 produced. So I'd like to also thank Howard for his dedication and zeal and tremendous energy. Most of all, we do this not for us, not for now, but for the generations who are here and will stop by, and the generations that haven't been born yet. So there's not much in it for us, but they can experience a really wonderful building. Thank you all very much for all of your work.
When we talk about historic preservation, we're really talking about the question of ownership, and not legal ownership, but something that's harder to define, like who a place belongs to and how will we pass it along to our next generations. The Harbor Hill Estate was built as a private world designed to announce wealth and separate it from everything outside of those gates. Here we are more than 120 years later. The gates are still standing, but they belong to us. Phase 2 of this restoration will bring back what time has taken from this building. The slate roof will be replaced, the copper gutters will be restored, and the clock that once sat above the central gates with its hand-hammered clock casing will be faithfully reproduced and returned to its place above the grand entrance. With the support of an anonymous donor, we're launching the It's Time to Give matching gift campaign. Through this donor's generosity, every new gift to the Gate Lodge Restoration Fund will be matched dollar for dollar up to $28,000, giving us the opportunity to bring a total of $56,000 available for this restoration. This campaign sits alongside the previously launched Founders Club, our initial fundraising campaign that has already brought more than 60 community members into the Mackay Estate Gate Lodge's story through an engraved brick on the walkway, which will permanently mark their support of this building's restoration. So now, as we enter this next phase, we're asking anyone who's ever driven past this building and felt something, whether that be curiosity, pride, or wonder, to make a donation, knowing that every dollar will be matched, allowing us to double our efforts to bring this building back to life. To close, I'm going to welcome Howard Kroplik back.
Well, I see we have our town supervisor, Jennifer DeSena. Would you like to say a few words?
I'd love to. I just want to thank you for this step. I am one of those people who has driven by here a million times and wondered what's happening. You know, what was that? And I look forward to this new campaign, and I encourage you to please support the Roslyn Historic Society. They are so full of energy, and they're just doing amazing work all around Roslyn. And especially huge thanks to Howard, who was our town historian for how many years?
7 years.
7 years. You know, it's a big year, America 250, and it's a time for looking back and looking forward. So what you're doing here today to restore this gate will give pride to our residents now and our residents in the future. So thank you and congratulations, and I look forward to seeing this progress.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And I have to say, Jennifer is a great supporter of preservation in our community. She's been very involved with the Rosalind Bristol project. It's wonderful to see you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, in closing today, I just want to recognize a couple of other people. Catherine Curran is the Executive Director of the Gardner Foundation. They've also been a great supporter of all our projects, and they gave us a grant for the windows and doors. We're going to open up the gates so everybody can see the beautiful windows and doors restored. I want to also recognize John Santos, his company Island Contracting put in all the windows and doors, pro bono. And I want to recognize Nathan Allegra over here, a strong supporter of this project here. He's one of the founders as well, and I guarantee you your name will be on this building here in the stone as one of the great supporters of it. Good, but thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll open up the gate so you can see the inside as well.